I don't know if I was meant to escape or if I was meant to be found. Maybe I was always supposed to be here. Maybe I was never supposed to leave. It started with a noise. Faint, distant, something I could almost explain away. But then came the whispers. The doors that didn't lead where they should. The eyes I could feel but never see. I should have left the moment I stepped inside. But by the time I realized that, it was already too late. What I saw, what I heard, what followed me, is something I can't forget. Something I wish I could. Something truly disturbing. Welcome to Disturbia. Everyone always says, it could never happen to me. But I was one of those people too. Until it did. You see, I didn't believe in ghosts. Didn't believe in curses either. All that nonsense about haunted houses and things that go bump in the night, I chalked it up to stories told to scare kids or spice up dull nights. But let me tell you something. There are things out there. Things that aren't part of this world. Things that wait, watch, and they know exactly who you are. It started like any other day. Really, nothing special. But everything changed the moment I found that house. I don't even know why I went out there. I was just driving. Maybe it was the kind of day when you're looking for something, but you're not sure what. Something to break the monotony. Maybe just an escape. I wasn't thinking about it when I made the turn, but somehow I ended up on a road I didn't recognize, with woods on both sides and this thick, suffocating fog creeping across the asphalt. It was the fog that first caught my attention. It wasn't natural. It moved too deliberately, like it was alive. It wasn't like the kind of mist you get when it rains. No, this felt wrong. And then I saw it. It was just there, standing like a monument to all the things that had ever been forgotten. I don't know why I didn't turn back, but I didn't. Maybe it was the curiosity, or maybe something in me knew I was already too far gone to stop. That house shouldn't have been there. I swear it wasn't there the last time I passed through. It was too old, too out of place for a street that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. The windows were blackened, almost as if the glass had never been cleaned, and the roof sagged under the weight of years of neglect. Yet, somehow, it stood there, still, like it had been waiting for me. I didn't know it then, but I was about to make a mistake you'd regret forever. I should have left right then. You know that gut feeling we get when something tells us this isn't right? I had that feeling, but I ignored it. I didn't even try to go back. Instead, I got out of my car and approached the house because, well, I don't know. Something pulled me toward it, a force I couldn't explain. At first, it seemed like nothing, just an old, abandoned house, the kind you find in stories. But the closer I got, the more I could feel something. The air felt wrong, cold in a way that wasn't natural. Even though it was summer, I could see my breath. I stepped closer to the door. It was cracked open, like it was waiting for me. So, like a fool, I went inside. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet as I stepped into the hallway. It smelled like dust and decay, but there was something else. Something foul, just beneath the surface. I could almost taste it. Something that made my stomach churn and my skin crawl. The air felt heavy, thick, and as I walked deeper into the house, it seemed to grow colder. Then, I heard it a whisper. Soft at first, like the rustling of leaves, but it grew clearer. And as I listened, I realized it wasn't just a whisper. It was a voice calling my name. I should have left then, but I didn't. I kept walking like an idiot. I couldn't help myself. It was like something was drawing me deeper into the house. I tried to stop, but my feet, they kept moving. I heard it again, clearer this time. Come closer. I froze. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I couldn't move. And then I saw it, standing at the end of the hallway. Something. It was human-shaped, but its limbs were wrong, twisted in a way that no human body could be. Its skin was pale, like bone, stretched thin over a frame that shouldn't have been able to move. And its eyes, those eyes were black, empty, hollow voids that seemed to suck in the very light around them. I could feel its gaze boring into me. And that's when I realized, whatever this thing was, it wasn't alone. I turned to run. I ran as fast as I could, but it was like the house had become a maze, twisting and shifting around me. No matter which way I turned, the hallway never seemed to end. And the sound of footsteps, getting closer and closer. I could hear them now. There were more of them, more shapes, moving just outside my field of vision. But every time I looked, all I saw were shadows. Faint, fleeting, and yet I could feel them, watching, waiting. And then I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I didn't scream. I couldn't even move. But I could feel its fingers, cold as death, gripping me. I could feel it breathe on the back of my neck. And I knew that it wasn't just one of them. It was all of them. And they were hungry. I didn't scream when it touched me. Maybe I was too terrified. Maybe I was frozen in place, unable to even think. But that cold grip, it lingered, and I could feel it, like a weight settling into my very bones. It wasn't just the touch. It was something far worse, something more. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. If I looked, I knew it would see me. If I looked, I knew I wouldn't escape. So I stood there, paralyzed, my eyes glued to the floor as the air grew colder, the shadows growing longer. But then the whisper started again. The voice. It was soft, almost soothing, but there was something wrong about it. It was a voice that shouldn't have existed in the world of the living. It promised me things I couldn't understand, but somehow I felt compelled to listen. It will all be over soon, it whispered. Just let go. I wanted to scream, but the air was thick. My mouth felt dry. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. And that's when I heard it. A sound so unnatural, it shook me to the core. A door creaking open. I didn't turn. I couldn't. But I felt it. Felt the room shift, the weight of something, or someone entering. I don't know how long I stood there, but when I finally turned, I found myself staring at the door to the basement. It hadn't been there before. I swear to you, it hadn't been there. But there it was now, a pitch-black gaping maw beneath the house, beckoning me forward. The whispers grew louder, more urgent, more insistent. Come closer. Something told me that if I stepped into that darkness, I would never return. But the house, it wouldn't let me leave. Not yet. I didn't choose to go. It was like the house itself was guiding me, pulling me forward, until I was standing at the edge of the basement steps. I could see nothing but pitch black below. The air smelled stale, damp, like death. And I knew whatever was waiting down there wasn't human, but I had to go. I didn't understand it, but I couldn't resist. My feet, they moved on their own, one step after another, into the darkness. And that's when I heard the first scream. It wasn't just any scream. It wasn't a human scream. It was something else. Something guttural, filled with pure, unadulterated pain. And it was followed by another, and another. I could feel my chest tightening, my breath coming faster, but I couldn't stop moving. Down those steps, deeper into that darkness. I could hear them, the breathing, but I couldn't see them. And that's when I felt it. Something brushing against my leg, a cold, wet sensation. I recoiled, but there was nothing there. Nothing that I could see, but I could feel it. Something was moving around me. It was watching me. I reached for my phone, desperate for light, but when I turned on the flashlight, all I could see was a crumbling wall, the foundation of the house sinking into the earth. I turned, expecting to see the stairs behind me, but they were gone. The basement had expanded, stretching out into a labyrinth of rooms I couldn't understand. I was lost, and that's when I heard it again. A voice, but this time, it wasn't whispering. It was loud. It was clear, and it was angry. Leave. I couldn't leave. Not anymore. The house. It was pulling me in, pulling me deeper, like it had already claimed me. I could hear the others now. The voices. So many voices. People. People who had been lost here before. People who had come searching for answers. And now they were screaming, pleading with me to leave. But I couldn't. I was too deep. I had already stepped too far into its grasp. And then, I saw them. Figures, shapes that weren't quite human. Twisted, contorted, and wrong. They stood there, watching me, their eyes glowing faintly, their mouths hanging open in silent screams. Some of them were still, some of them twitched, but they all watched me with those black eyes. Eyes that weren't human, eyes that were hungry. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, but my body wouldn't listen. I was rooted to the spot, unable to move. And then one of them stepped forward, slowly. It didn't walk like a person. It crawled, dragging itself across the floor. Its limbs were bent at unnatural angles. It dragged its twisted body closer and closer to me. And that's when I knew I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't meant to see this, but now I was. And there was no way out. I didn't know how to describe what I was seeing. These things, they weren't human. Not anymore. They weren't even alive in the way we understand it. Their bodies were twisted, broken, in ways that defied the laws of nature. Their eyes, those black, bottomless pits, were locked on me, and I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The air was thick with decay and something else, something older, more ancient than anything I could comprehend. And then, one of them opened its mouth. I thought it was going to scream. I thought the air would shatter with the sound. But no. Instead, it whispered, just like the voice in the hallway before. It whispered my name. You shouldn't have come here. Its voice was like nails scraping against stone, grating, sharp. But somehow, I could hear it clearly, as if it were inside my own mind. It wasn't speaking to me the way a person speaks. It was feeling me, reading me, my thoughts, my fears, everything. And it knew exactly how terrified I was. But it wasn't done. Not yet. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, to fight, to do anything, but my body wouldn't respond. It was like the house itself was holding me there, frozen in place. My legs shook, my heart hammered in my chest. The creature kept coming closer. Its dragging steps echoed louder in the suffocating silence. I could hear the air change, like it was thickening around me. And then, a loud crash. The walls, they moved. No, not the walls. The room itself. It shifted, and I realized, too late, that I had been standing in the middle of a trap. The floor beneath me opened, like a mouth ready to swallow me whole. I barely had time to react. One moment, I was standing on solid ground. The next, I was falling. I hit the ground hard, a sharp pain shooting up my legs. I groaned, gasping for air. I wasn't sure if I had landed on something, but the cold, damp earth was everywhere, clinging to my skin, filling my lungs. My phone had slipped from my hand and was now just a faint light in the distance, far above me, and I was alone again. At least, I thought I was. I stood up, shaking, and tried to regain my bearings. I needed to get out. I needed to escape, but the air was thick down here. Too thick, too oppressive. It felt wrong. Every breath I took made my chest tighten more. And that's when I noticed the symbols on the walls. They were faint, almost indistinguishable from the cracks in the stone. But as I stepped closer, they became clearer. Runes, ancient ones. They pulsed with a dark, sickly energy that seemed to beat in time with my own heart. I didn't know what they meant, but I knew they were bad. They were wrong. And that's when I heard it. The faintest sound, like the brush of skin against stone. And then, a movement in the corner of the room. I whipped around, and there it was. It was one of them again. But it wasn't just standing there. This one was moving faster, crawling, skittering across the ground on all fours, its limbs bent in impossible angles. It was coming toward me with unnatural speed. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the uneven ground, but I couldn't keep my balance. I fell, my head smacking the ground hard. I had to fight to stay conscious. I couldn't let it get me. But then, I heard it. That voice. The one that had spoken to me before. The one that had followed me. It wasn't whispering anymore. It was laughing. Loud. Haunting. And it came from all directions, surrounding me, echoing in my skull. You shouldn't have come. You're already part of it now. I struggled to my feet, desperate to find an escape. But the walls, they were closing in, slowly, squeezing me, pressing me. And the laughter. God, the laughter. It was everywhere now. I was suffocating under it. And the creatures, they weren't just standing there anymore. They were coming for me, crawling, skittering, slithering. I ran. I don't know how. I don't know where. But I ran. I just kept running. The darkness swallowed me whole, and the walls seemed to move, bending with every step I took. There was no exit. There was no way out. And then, I saw it a light, far off, at the end of the hall. But as I moved toward it, it flickered, and the sound of something heavy shifted in the shadows. I was too close. It was too late. Don't follow me. Please don't follow me. Just let me out. Let me leave. I don't belong here. I don't belong here. I don't know how much time has passed. I don't know where I am anymore, but I'm still here. am still inside the house, and I can hear them. I can hear them in the walls, in the shadows. I hear their footsteps, but I can't see them. And every time I think I've gotten away, I find another room, another hallway. And there's always that whisper, always that voice, telling me I'm theirs. I don't know what they want, but I know this much. They won't stop until they've taken me. And now, the house. It's changing me. I can feel it. I can feel myself becoming like them. It's only a matter of time before I become one of them. I can hear them. The whispers, the laughter. I thought I was alone, but am not. There are others here too. Others who've fallen into the same trap I have. And I hear them now. Their screams, their desperate cries. They've been here far longer than I have. But I am different. I'm still fighting. I'm still trying to survive. But I don't know how much longer I can last. And then I heard it. A scream. A real scream. It wasn't a voice in my head. It wasn't something I felt. It was real. Flesh and blood. A woman. She was screaming in agony, her voice echoing down the hall. She was begging, crying for someone to help her. But I knew better. There was no one here to help. No one who could hear. I ran toward the scream. I didn't want to. I knew it was a trap. I knew it would lead me into more darkness, but I couldn't stop myself. The scream echoed louder, more frantic, more desperate. My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't just stand there, not when someone was in pain. I reached the corner, my feet heavy as I approached. And that's when I saw her. She was on the floor, hands gripping her throat, gasping for air as if she were choking. Her eyes were wide with terror, her body trembling with every breath. She didn't see me at first, but then she turned her head, her eyes locking onto mine. I could see the fear in her eyes, the kind of fear that only comes when you've seen something that you can never forget, something that you can never escape. And then she spoke. "Don't let it take you." Her voice was barely a whisper, but the words, they hit me like a punch to the gut. Don't let it take you. And then, the walls around us shifted. I couldn't understand what was happening. The walls didn't just move, they changed. The air grew colder, and a shadow seemed to swallow the light around us. The woman's body jerked violently, as though something was pulling her from the inside out. I reached out to help her. I didn't know why. I knew it was useless. I knew she was already gone. But I had to try. I grabbed her arm, and she looked at me one last time. And then, just like that, her body was gone. She didn't scream. There was no flash of light, no supernatural explosion. She was just gone. And I was left standing there in the dark, holding nothing but the remnants of her terror. The laughter began again. That voice. It was closer now. It was like a presence breathing down my neck. It wasn't just in my head anymore. It was with me. "She's gone. You're next." I didn't stay long. I couldn't. I ran. I had to get out. I had to escape. But every corner I turned, every room I entered, there was nothing but darkness and whispers. The house was alive now, alive with the souls it had consumed. It was laughing at me, taunting me. It wanted me to give in. And then I saw him, another man, standing in front of me. He was in his 30s, his eyes wide with panic, his clothes torn and bloody. His face, His face was twisted in terror. I could see his chest heaving, his breathing labored. "Help me," he gasped. "Please, help me. It's coming. You don't understand. It's coming." I reached out to him, trying to help him stand. But before I could touch him, he screamed. The scream was like something ripping through the air. His body jerked violently, his arms flailing. His chest cracked open like an egg, and from inside, something crawled out. It was dark, slick, like a mass of shadows. But I could see eyes. So many eyes, blinking, shifting in that blackness. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't. And then, in a split second, the thing tore into him, ripped him apart with a speed that shouldn't have been possible. Blood sprayed across the walls, coating everything in thick red. But that wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part was what happened next. The thing. It turned its eyes on me. It saw me. And in that moment, I knew it was coming for me next. I didn't wait. I ran. I didn't care where. I didn't know where I was going. I just had to move. But I couldn't escape the blood. I couldn't escape the sound of it, of him, screaming, dying. The walls seemed to close in tighter with every step I took, and the thing was still following me. I could hear it, breathing heavily. Closer now, so close. I stumbled, falling into another room, an old, decrepit kitchen. The air reeked of rot. The floor was sticky with something. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to know what it was. But then I heard the door creak behind me. I turned, heart pounding in my chest. And that's when I saw it. A man. A real man. He was standing there, eyes wide in terror, shaking uncontrollably. His face was pale, bloodshot, and in his hand, he was holding a knife, a large, serrated blade. I could see the madness in his eyes. "It's coming," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "It's already here." I couldn't understand. I couldn't make sense of it. And then, without warning, he lunged at me. I didn't have time to think. I ducked, my heart racing, and the knife swished just inches from my face. He wasn't attacking me like a person would. He wasn't aiming to kill. No, he was lost. He was as much a part of the house as the creatures now. He was a puppet, controlled by something far worse than any of us. I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to kill him. But in that moment, I didn't have a choice. I didn't kill him. But I had to stop him. I had to survive. And when I finally knocked the knife from his hand, when I finally pushed him to the ground, I thought it was over. I thought I had won. But the house didn't want me to win. It didn't want any of us to win. And that's when I heard the sound, the unmistakable sound of something breaking. A body, a scream, a death. I was still running. My legs ached, but I couldn't stop. Every step felt like it was pulling me deeper into this nightmare, into this thing. The house had turned on me. The walls, the air. Everything was closing in. I glanced behind me. The man with the knife was still there, on the floor, twitching as though some invisible force was pulling him. His eyes were empty now, wide, lifeless. Gone, and in the darkness, I saw something moving, not just a shadow, but a presence. It was like the house itself was breathing, living, shifting with every heartbeat. I didn't know if I was imagining it, or if I was really seeing something that shouldn't exist. but it was real. I could feel it. I ran faster. I couldn't stop. I couldn't look back. I knew what was behind me. I knew that if I slowed down, I would die. I found a door. It was barely noticeable, hidden behind peeling wallpaper. A doorway. A way out, I thought. But I was wrong. The moment I touched the handle, I felt it. The cold, the wrongness, the way the air seemed to thicken. The door opened, and I stumbled through, only to find myself in another room, or maybe the same room, the same place. The walls were different. The floor was different, but it felt the same. It was like time had folded, like everything was connected, every door leading back to the same cursed place. And there it was again. That laugh. It echoed from every corner. A low, sickening chuckle that crawled under my skin. I turned to look, but there was no one there. The air was still, empty, but I knew that the thing, whatever it was still watching me, waiting. It had seen me. It had heard me, and it wasn't going to stop. I moved to the far side of the room, trying to find another escape, but everything, it looked the same. Everything. And that's when I realized I wasn't alone. Not anymore. Something was standing there. I couldn't see it clearly. It was too dark, but I could feel it. It was there, watching me. It wasn't human. Not anymore. It stepped forward. The sound of its movements were like wet footsteps, squelching against the cold stone. The room felt suffocating now, the air thick with the smell of decay. I couldn't breathe. And then, for the first time since I had stepped into this nightmare, I heard its voice. "You shouldn't have come here," it whispered, a voice like scraping nails against glass. The walls trembled. The shadows began to twist. The floor cracked beneath my feet. The thing, it was moving closer. I could feel its breath on my neck, the air growing colder, thicker, until it felt like I was drowning in it. "We've been waiting for you." And then, the lights flickered. The house screamed, a deafening noise, as though it were alive. I backed away, my heart racing, but there was nowhere to go. I felt the walls closing in. And then, as quickly as it had started, everything went silent. The thing was gone. The door was gone. The walls, the room, the floor, gone. The house had swallowed me whole. But just before it all went black, I heard it one last time. That voice, and it wasn't alone anymore. "Don't worry," it whispered. "You'll fit right in." And then darkness. Pure, unbroken darkness. Maybe I was always supposed to be here.